Hello, my name is Miller Pike. I'm a producer and creator located in Bushwick, Brooklyn, and you are once again joining me on AP Studio Files.
AP Studio Files.
A podcast brought to you surrounding the conversations of art, creativity, and community in partnership with Apartment Party. Welcome to our third episode. If you're joining us for the first time, please also check out episode 1 featuring Anya Kapishki and episode 2 featuring Carrie Blue. And if you've already tuned in, welcome back. We are so grateful for your support and listening ears. This week, I will be interviewing the band Rosemont Post, a dynamic duo made up by two long-term roommates, Danny Turner and John Ryan Delbosky, who have blessed the Apartment Party stage countless times. Both fellow Texans raised in the tradition of church choirs, children's choruses, and with their backgrounds in the musical theater and their shared love of 2000s pop. These elements have inspired their extreme vocal-driven harmonies. They have played all over the city, including Empire State Music and Arts Festival, which Carrie Blue creates and hosts, also Rockwood Music Hall, the Delancey, and they released their single, Silver Bullet, in January 2020 with an epic show at the bitter end. They have continued to write and perform via Zooms and Instagram Lives throughout the pandemic and released another single, Undercover, in October 2020. And by the time you're listening to this episode, they will have just released their third single, Mel, available on all streaming services. Please note that John Ryan is joining us via Zoom. And now to welcome Rosemont Post. Welcome.
Hi, Miller.
Hi. I've so enjoyed watching you guys throughout COVID, and I'm so grateful for you guys joining me here today. So welcome. And I wanted to give you both a moment to sort of pass my intro, sort of introduce yourselves a little bit. So Danny, if you'd like to introduce.
Hi, everyone. I'm Danny, one half of Rosemont Post. I'm 30 years old.
Woo!
Moved to New York about 8 years ago. I was trying to do like musical theater for a while, and then I sort of started getting into songwriting, and I went back to school from 2015 to 16 in Valencia, Spain, at Berklee College of Music's Valencia program.
Gorgeous.
Which is where I met Ryan Benhammer, who is our producer in
Woo.
Rosemont Post now. Then I came back to New York, and just like really hit the ground running with writing music and trying to play with different bands. I sing with a couple wedding bands, and I bartend, which is where we met, actually.
Yes, I was thinking about that. For those who don't know, we are actually all Texans. Like many Texans that I know in New York, I actually didn't meet them in Texas. I met Danny at McCoy's.
Yes, we did meet at McCoy's.
Love it.
Yeah.
And then how about yourself, John Ryan? Give us a little bit of background. How long have you been in New York and all that kind of jazz? I know you're back in Texas, but...
Yes, hi, I'm John Ryan. I'm the other half of Rosemont Post.
Woo!
Coming at you live from Houston, Texas. I was in New York for around 8 years as well, and went there for musical theater, studied musical theater back in Texas. Kind of like, didn't really want to do that anymore. And then once Danny and I linked up, we started writing and performing, and then, I fell in love with songwriting so much. Now I'm back here in Houston, getting my bearings, doing a couple of theater stuff down here, and I don't know, I really miss New York, I gotta say. I miss y'all so much.
It misses you too.
But you actually, that was something I wanted to get into. You just did a Stage's studio session performance, and that was all completely your work, correct?
Oh yes, my vision, or my nightmare, actually. Yeah, I was like thinking about that thing for so long, and it's funny that now it's over, that I have like so much more time and like creative energy in my brain to like give to Rosemont Post, and I'm so excited to start to do that more.
That's really exciting. I mean, it was exciting for me. Unfortunately, I would love for our audiences to be able to see, but it was only a 48-hour showing.
Yeah.
But it's great. I mean, we've talked a couple times, especially on episode 1, where I interviewed our technical producer, Anya Kapishki. We spoke a lot about kind of the way that art has been translated to the Zoom, YouTube,
That's right.
video platforms. So it was really cool. And it was also just so exciting to hear your voice in a way that I've never heard before. We got a cowboy over here.
It was amazing.
That's right.
Miller texts me. She's like, Jen Ryan singing country music, all caps. She's like, I live.
It was so fun. It was so fun.
I'm so glad
good.
you had a good time. So y'all met in Texas.
Yeah, we met studying musical theater at
Love
Sam Houston State University.
Oh.
Eat 'em up, cats.
Amazing. And then I know you started sort of first just futzing around, kind of singer-songwriter stuff. What was the real moment for you that Rosemont Post became, I guess, kind of like, oh, we're doing this?
Right. Well, so we moved in together, and we had actually lived together like a few months at a time, sort of helping each other out, like when we were in between gigs and whatnot. And so like I said, I had studied songwriting and like really wanted to get in that vein. And I'd been writing a lot and like playing guitar. And then there was just one day where I spent the whole day trying to write a song. I was like a little frustrated. I had a chord progression and a verse. But I just like couldn't think of a hook. And John Ryan came home, and he just started playing me voice memos, and he played me undercover the chorus that he had just came up like just in his head, just made up the melody like walking home or something, and it was perfect, and it was like in the key that I was just writing. And so we sang it together, and we just sat there for a couple hours just like making a song, just really like it was just really organic and natural. And then we just kept doing that just because it was just so fun for both of us. We both loved singing and performing. And then we started playing shows. And it was sort of like over time, over a few months of doing that we were like, oh shit, like, we're a band, right? We're like, right. Wait, we need a name now.
I always find y'all's name really fascinating. And I love the like quirky history part of it. So if you could tell our audience a little bit about that, that'd be awesome.
So when we became roommates, we moved into a historic mansion, now called the Bilkis Mansion. And it's right by Astoria Park South. It's this really big, old white mansion. And I think it was built in like the 1850s is what I've heard. And while we were there, like we got curious about what the history of the place that we live in would be, right? Mm-hmm. And so we looked it up, and it was called the Rosemont Mansion, because the owner was obsessed with roses and would have roses, like rose gardens all around the house. And
love that.
Apparently they had a really gorgeous tree too in the front that they cut down. So shout out to them. The Post part, Rosemont Post, is from a band generator website that I used.
I love that because it's like the juxtaposition between like, oh, it's named after a historic mansion, and then also just help from a band name generator.
Right. Well, we both were like, we were reading about it one day, and we were like, oh, Rosemont, that's such a cool name. Mm-hmm. But if you Google Rosemont, there's like apartments and this and that. Like there is no real band. But so we're like, we need one more name. Right. And so he was typing it in and like different things would like pop up, and then Post, and we both were like, Rosemont Post. Wait, that sounds really good. And then we just kind of made up our own meaning with it.
I love it. The Bilks Mansion, once called the Rosemont, was built in 1852 in a grand southern plantation style by Varnish moguls Smith and Stratton, who operated in Astoria Village in 1856. They then decamped further down the East Riverside to Hunters Point. Unfortunately, in the 1990s, it was converted to the wreck you see today at 2537 14th Street. Raped and ravaged, in the words of American Institute of Architects' Guide to New York City. The tree John Ryan mentioned, an ancient copper beech tree, has long been chopped down, and the exterior has been converted to something considered more appropriate to the times by its current owner, or at least a recent one. The Rosemont is located in Astoria Village. Astoria Village is a neighborhood at risk due to the accelerating rate of teardowns and new construction. It's a neighborhood that, despite its stock of antebellum mansions and single-family homes, has steadfastly resisted any effort at preservation. It doesn't seem like anything in the neighborhood has unfortunately gotten a landmark status. So then kind of going into sort of your early days What are some of the things that you look back on? And I know, like, especially right now, especially throughout the COVID year, looking back can be kind of like, bittersweet.
Yeah.
But what are some of like past glories, the shows that you really look back on fondly?
I know for me, when we released Silver Bullet, which was January 4th of 2020, right before, the whole shit show, and we played The Bitter End. It was actually our last show that we did like live with our band, and the first time we had released an original song like out in the world, and just the energy there was just so cool. And just knowing we were like standing on a stage that some incredible, amazing artists that we both love so much had played before, it was really, really great. And that definitely stands out to me, probably because it was the last one, and our release party and everything.
It's definitely one of those things where you look back and like you said, since so many historic people, I mean, that's such a ghost-filled place,
right?
In such an amazing way. And the sort of bittersweet aspect of it being that last big show is really hard. And then John Ryan, how about for yourself, in terms of past glories, when you look back and you were really excited about shows or about just your creativity in general?
Yeah, and so many come to mind, actually. I mean, one of the coolest things about like writing these songs and getting to perform them at all these awesome places is like the support that we feel from our friends and people who we don't really know that well, but that are calm and they sing the lyrics back to us that we wrote.
Yes.
Man, like that feels so good. Mm-hmm. And actually one of the places that I could tell that people were like listening every word was at your apartment parties. And wow, like they're so focused. They were like, it's so special, and I really miss those a lot.
I miss them so much. Carrie Blue, who you both know as well, he's featured on the second episode of AP Studio Files. Him and I kind of spoke about that a lot, that like intimacy with creativity in smaller shows and like Apartment Party. And for those who don't know, Rosemont Post has been featured on the Apartment Party stage, I believe 3 times, and Danny solo at least once or twice.
Yeah, I think so.
And you'll always bring such an energy. And I remember you performed a show that my mom got to see, and she's just always like, "Oh, how are those Rosemont Poster post?" She says, "Poster, Rosemont Poster kids." She always loved y'all. Y'all just bring such an energy to the stage, and it's been so fun hosting you as always. And now for a word from friend of the pod, Alexandra Cole.
Hey AP Studio Files listeners, it's me again, Alexandra Cole, host of the PODBROADS, a podcast about women in podcasting. I'm back this week to tell you about 2 very special episodes of the PODBROADS that came out this month on April 14th and April 21st. As many of you may know, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and being a survivor of sexual abuse myself, this month is very near and dear to my heart, and it is part of the reason why I wanted to feature 2 guests on my podcast that have been creating content from a survivor-centered focus from the inception of their own. I interview Mala Munoz and Diosa Femme, the co-hosts and co-creators of Locatora Radio, a radiophonic novela, which, as they say, is just a fancy way of saying a podcast. And they created it to archive the legacies, geniuses, and brilliance of women and femmes of color. In my conversation with Mala, we talk all about her work as a self-defense instructor and some of the techniques along with that, her work as an LA-based rape crisis counselor, and survivor-centered parties that she and Diosa would hold pre-pandemic. Everything that Mala does and embodies is in direct opposition to societal norms that have created more dangerous environments for women and femmes.
But when I really saw it in my face, I was like, you know what? So much of this theology that we learn, so much of the acculturation is like really raising us to be perfect, silent, compliant victims. And I'm not having it. So I'm going to be the opposite. I'm going to be La Mala, and you're going to deal with it, but it's going to be an act of self-preservation.
The following episode, I talk with Diosa, and she shares about her own experience with sexual assault, how that impacted her experience with her sexuality, and the importance of sensuality and reclaiming one's sexual relationship with themselves as an act of resistance and healing.
Finding this persona that was, or creating this persona for myself that was deeply rooted in like sensuality and feeling sexual for myself and like with a partner that I choose was a ongoing journey that I had
Now, while these episodes really get into some important conversations around sexual assault and awareness, they are also super fun and filled with laughter.
Oh my God. Can I just say?
Yes, obsessed.
Mala and Diosa get into things like mother reactions to their lingerie shoots, annoying DM comments from men, and influencer culture as a whole. You can find these episodes on poddraland.com and updates about everything PodBroads related on my Instagram at poddraland, that's pod.draland. And to my fellow survivors out there, whether you've shared publicly or not, I see you, I hear you, I support you, and I will continue to advocate for you in my personal life and the work that I do.
How has this last year been for everyone? I know, like, if you're anything like me, I kind of went into 2020 saying professional growth, and 2020 said personal growth.
Right.
So, how has the COVID experience, how has creativity in COVID been?
I mean, of course, like, it was depressing at times, and it was fun at times. But as far as, like, creativity, we wrote a couple songs while we were up there that I'm super proud of, and I think that they really reflect exactly what we were feeling at the time, which is kind of confusing because it was a time that it was like you're able to like sit and like reflect with yourself, but then you're like had too much time to do that.
Right.
So
Right.
Right.
But yeah, creativity, I think we had some really cool stuff out there. We did some live shows that I hold special to my heart on Instagram. But of course, like, it's also stifling because it just feels like, it was like, I don't know. It's crazy the two sides of the coin, though. Sometimes it felt like, yes, we got this.
I definitely can relate to that. I think Danny and I were speaking even before we started recording kind of about the fact that, like, neither of our lives were set up to be at home before this.
Yeah.
All of our creativity, all of our activities were based around being out and being with people.
Right.
And it was very, very interesting to just kind of sit and go, okay, what am I going to do now? And then how about for you, Danny?
Well, like what we were saying, or what you had just said about, we went into 2020 and I remember thinking, like, we're going to release our songs this year. We're going to play so many shows, like, the professional growth. And then everything sort of just stopped. And it was like we were forced to sort of just sit with everything. Especially, it was a really difficult time. Like, I really had to sort of face a lot of like my own mental health issues that I realized by staying so busy. I hadn't before. Right. I was kind of avoiding, and I didn't even realize I was avoiding a lot of things. And I'm really so grateful that John Ryan and I were able to be together during that time, because he definitely helped me. And I think there were a few times where when we finally were able to kind of sit down and write and put it into words, it really helped sort of sort through a lot of those, feelings and emotions. And we definitely, I think, in quarantine, the few songs that we really did like perfect and finish, like showed the growth in our songwriting and also just like the growth in ourselves, it was really tough. But then like sitting back now and, as things are starting to open up and, we're able to do things like this even, it's shown that it was so worth it, I mean, it was really tough, but the growing pains like are now kind of, I can see it, like the fruit from that,
Yeah, you guys even released a song in October.
Yeah, we did.
Which I think has been so fun to watch. I mean, like I said, I was talking with Carrie about this on episode 2, kind of how I've been so thrilled and excited to watch people continue to make art and continue to be challenged by this situation and rise to that challenge. So now John Ryan is in Houston, Texas, and Danny, you're still at...
I'm still at the Rosemont.
Still at the Rosemont.
Holding it down.
Holding it down.
Yeah.
So what are kind of the next steps? What are the next things you're excited about?
Through quarantine and even right up until then, we had really laid a lot of groundwork. We'd worked with Ryan Binhammer on a lot of tracks, getting demos together. We had all of these sort of missing parts that were kind of just floating around. So once John Ryan had the opportunity to go to Houston and sort of, kind of collect himself and like center himself and do what was best for him in this moment, it kind of like lit a fire under my ass that I was like,
Love it.
Okay, let's organize all of these things, all the photo shoots, all the studio time, all the sessions, and let's like piece them together. And we realized through that how much we actually had to work with. And it sort of made it kind of, in a really strange way, like him leaving kind of made us like reorganize and
refocus.
Yeah. And now, I'm going to be going to Houston in May. We're going to be recording. He'll come to New York in the summer, and we'll be, we're talking about doing some videos. And so we're just going to like keep pushing, and it kind of gives us more like deadlines and also to like miss each other. And, when we come back, it's not just like, hey, roommate, like,
you're like, hey, I hate you. No,
no. Like, did you have coffee today? It's more like, we can really come together, and it's going to be even more like special when we do.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Aww.
So we got a lot of stuff coming out.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Anything particularly for you, John Ryan? Because I know you've moved now for a completely new job. Is that correct?
Yeah, a new job, new opportunities, just like overall restart, I guess, for just like my like mental and physical being. And yeah, it's been great out here. It's been hot. It's getting hot. you know Texas.
Oh yeah.
It's no joke out there. I know you're going in
Houston.
Oh my gosh, Houston! I know.
Woo, that Houston heat.
Yeah, but I agree with Danny. Like, it is really weird. It's something about leaving that it was like, okay, well, let's focus, because I guess like it's sad to say that we're like right now we're not roommates, so we are bandmates and best friends, and this is what we have to do. It's like no longer our conversations aren't about like, who didn't put the toilet paper on,
which was never me.
Yeah, me neither. Okay. But now they are like it feels like a more of like a business, and like we're ready to like.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of nice. I think it's nice to sort of like you said, to have the focus when you are together, to have the like really really hardcore intention, because it's like if you're living together, you can write that song tomorrow.
Exactly.
But now you have to write it while you're in Houston, or you have to do the thing while you're in New York, and it's kind of nice to have two musical homes.
Yeah.
I mean, the Houston music scene is great, and there's a lot happening there as well.
Oh, Houston's amazing, especially for theater too.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
It's nice to see, like watching him, John Ryan, you perform his show. I cried like 100 times, because it was so cool to see him return to like how I met him, and like how I sort of like fell in love with his voice and everything, on stage, and these new opportunities like coming up. It's really cool.
And like I said, it was so exciting to hear your voice in a way I had never heard John Ryan.
Yeah,
it was great.
Yeah.
The Houston music scene is, of course, renowned for some huge names like Beyonce, Megan Thee Stallion, and Travis Scott most recently. But the Houston Theater District is also a massive part of downtown, taking a 17-block area in the heart of downtown Houston. Houston hosts 9 professional performing arts organizations, the 130-square-foot Bayou Place Entertainment Complex, restaurants, movies, plazas, and parks. More than 2 million people visit the Houston Theater District annually. I have my kind of final question, and also I just want to say, thank you so much for being here with me today. Thank you so much for donating your time. Thank you for donating your time to all of the apartment parties and bringing that like fire and party attitude. And, I think kind of your formation of your band and the way that you move creatively, I find it to be really admirable, and also very much in line with what I see our creative community doing going forward, which is really exciting. So thank you for that.
Thanks for having us.
And then kind of my thesis for this first season is, what does joy look like in a community setting going forward? And I've sort of been ruminating about this question since last summer, and it was one of the things that inspired me to start this podcast, to talk to those creatives that I do see going forward in community. So what does joy look like in a community setting going forward? And I'd love to hear from both of you.
I think that it looks like togetherness, probably, like something where I don't know, like I think that during the summer, like so much has happened, honestly, like from last March to now. Like so much has happened within, I think, the country as a whole, hopefully, and
definitely,
especially like within our individual selves, like a lot of like reflecting has happened. So with that, you put it into your art, and I've seen like a ton of art come out of this that is really special because you're getting to see a lot of different people's perspectives. And I think that once you get to know other people's perspective of the world and how they are viewed and how they view the world, it brings us closer. And I think that that's happening so much in art right now.
Yeah.
And I think that it's that like togetherness. It's that you get to know me, I get to know you, and let's find our common ground and let's, you know, do something special with it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think there's a lot of joy in feeling heard and understood, and sort of kind of what John Ryan is saying, like that connection, you know,
Totally.
like the joy comes from just love and like connecting with another person. And I think in the last year, that's what so many people have been missing, and especially creatives, is, you know, those apartment parties, those in-person connections. Definitely. And then being able to kind of just digest all of this art that people have been creating through this year, through the pain, feeling that connection and feeling like that, like, oh, I'm valid, like I feel that too, which is what art's always done, just kind of reflecting back like the human experience. But since we all experienced this 1 year together, like all of the art that's being created during this time, I think just by seeing it and sharing it, like it's just love and joy, and you know, like it's,
I definitely feel that. I definitely feel that. No, I 100% agree. And well, thank you both so much for being on. Tell the people where to find you. Tell them, I think you have something exciting happening tomorrow.
Yes. Midnight tonight. Well, by the time
this episode is out,
it will already have been out. But our third single, Mel, is being released tomorrow, and we're really excited about it. We're also working on our fourth, which will be out soon as well.
Okay. Just keep teasing the people. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and you can find us at rosemontpost.com and at Rosemont Post on Instagram and Facebook. You can email us at rosemontpost@gmail.com and talk to us.
Show inquiries, anyone?
Yes,
now that venues are starting to open up, don't worry. John Ryan will travel. Can and will.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But thanks so much for having us. It's really great to be here.
Thank you
so much.
Yeah.
Are you gonna tell me?
AP Studio Files can be found on all your streaming platforms. Please share with your friends. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at APStudioBK. Our host is Miller Pike, technical producer Anya Kopishki, photographer Tucker W. Mitchell. Today's theme music is by Fab the Duo and research by H. Connolly. Special thanks to Corey Germain, Rachel Kreberg, Tim LaSalle, and Alexandra Cole. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been an AP Studio production in association with Apartment Party.
You told her you're sorry all over my body. I need you. You only make me